Well, it says the Hangout on air is live, so I hope that means something. Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Simpson. I'm on Twitter as at iDanSimpsonVO. And today I have Jason Rooney with me, and he's on Twitter at JasonRooneyVO. Say hi, Jason.
Hello there. Thanks for having me, Dan. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on. It's really a blast to have these guests come on to this show. We all at the VO podcast, and by we all, I mean, it's just me, you guys. I know I always say we, but it's just me. I thank you guys so much for coming on the show, and I also thank you guys for watching. If you have any specific questions that you would like for me to ask Jason Rooney or any other guest, go ahead and tweet me at iDanSimpsonVO or directly at the VO podcast, at the VO podcast. Let's talk about Jason. Jason, he is a nationally recognized voice actor. He's known mostly for television promos and commercials. He is the in-show and promo voice for the Wendy Williams Show and other promo clients, including HGTV, TruTV, Travel Channel, A&E, PBS. This is a lot of TV here. PBS, the Outdoor Channel, MTV, and he's also a featured voice on Saturday Night Live. I'm going to ask you about that. Some of the commercial clients include Walmart, Disney, Proactiv, Mattel, Nintendo, Panda Express, T-Mobile, NBA, Gold Bond, and many more. So obviously, we're working with a legit VO today. And Jason, I just want to thank you so much for coming on. Jason, where are you right now?
I'm in St. Louis, Missouri.
All right. And how are things in St. Louis, Missouri?
Things are wonderful. Since last year, we had the riots here, which was actually right when I moved back here from Las Vegas. So things have calmed down, and things are wonderful here.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that they've calmed down. I'm hoping that you're safe and everyone's safe and
well, I have two young kids, so I'm never really safe, but they might wander in at any minute. But other than that, we're good.
All righty. Well, good to hear that. Congratulations on your two kids. I haven't had a chance since those births. So congratulations, Jason. And thank you again for coming on. Let's go ahead and let's launch into this. Obviously, I just listed a whole bunch of different things that you do. And as a new VO, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, here we go. This is going to be legitimate. This is a chance for me to really find out what I can learn. And as new VOs, there's a lot that we can learn from these interviews. And I'm also hoping that experienced VOs can also learn from these as well. So we'll just go ahead and let you talk about whatever you want to talk about. Here we go, Jason. Jason, let's just launch into this. When did you first give voiceovers a go? When did you go into the business?
Well, I started in radio when I was a teenager in high school here in St. Louis, and then I ended up moving to Las Vegas back in the late 90s and did radio there. And then in 2003, there was a guy I worked with who had put together a demo tape for voiceover and took it to a local agency there in order to get signed onto their roster. So he got signed onto the roster, and he kept pestering me to do it. I've known about voiceover since I was younger. I actually, when I was probably 17 or 18, tried to get signed on back when I lived here in St. Louis with a local agency, but they wouldn't take me. At that time, and even here still to this day, it's big, booming voice guys. And those type of people really got all the lion's share of the work, especially here locally. I didn't think of anything past St. Louis at that time. So I knew about voiceover, but in 2003, my friend just kept telling me, come on. And, I was trying to get my demo tape done perfectly, and I went over and over it and redid it numerous times. He said, just whatever you got, just bring it down to him. So I brought it down to him, had a live audition with one of their producers, who is still a really good friend of mine, Matt Smith from Adrenaline Sound Productions. And so they ended up hiring me for their roster there, and I worked with them for probably a good 10 years. And that's how I got started. That's how I started working. And luckily for me, I started doing auditions right away and started booking a few things. So it started impacting my life right away. But that was my start in voiceover, and it was fun, and it still is fun.
Cool, Matt. You talked about getting into. You said you were working with an agent. Is that correct? You run a list.
It's a production house. They have, without mentioning the name, they have different studios throughout the country, and they have a roster of VO talent that they use for their clients. So they produce things, and then they have a roster of VO people that they use for everything. So that's kind of how I got in. And, lucky, of course, to be able to get in, because not everybody got in. You obviously had to be able to do the work, but they also had to have a spot for you, and your sound and your voice needed to be in need for holes that they had in their roster at the time. So a lot of things had to kind of line up in order for me, really anybody to get signed by anybody, really.
Were you doing a specific kind of work at that time, a specific kind of voicing?
The only voiceover I did at that time when I got signed was stuff I did at the radio station. So that's kind of how I got my practice, from cutting these local concert spots and whatever local clients that they would have you do that would air on the station. That's the kind of stuff I started to do. So I paid attention, and I knew of voiceover and a little bit kind of how things were. I guess really not really when I look back on it now, but so I kind of put my tape together in the kind of stuff that I thought would sound cool or would be fun to do. Like at the time, there were I don't even know who did it, but there were 7-Eleven spots that a guy was doing, and I always thought this was like really big in '03. The kind of deadpan sound, like the Carl's Jr.'s commercials. That guy, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but for many years he did that read, and that was really big at that time, less so now, and I always thought, like, man, that is the coolest sound. So I kind of tried to imitate or trying to do my own spin on that, and that's what I kind of led off with on my demo tape. And I don't know if that's what got me signed or whatever, but that's what kind of got me rolling.
All right, cool. Sorry, I'm trying to mute my cat over here. She's really friendly. That sounds really interesting. Now, can you do me a favor? Can you try to think back to the type of that work that you were doing with your radio production? You were working with a production house, doing mostly radio. What would that have sounded like? Can you maybe just improv something like that for me?
Well, here's the problem. When you're doing radio stuff, it's the local salespeople generally that are writing this. Every now and then you would get an agency that would write something and give it to you. But for the most part, it's a salesperson in the building that's writing scripts. And generally, these people don't have copywriting backgrounds. So that was kind of good in a way, because you got a lot of bad scripts. And not bad, they're nothing against the people. That wasn't really their forte. They weren't concerned about that. They were for their client, making their commercial, selling their airtime. But after all those bad scripts, you kind of have to learn how to make them work, because generally the sentences are way too long. There's no place to take a breath. There's a bunch of redundant stuff in there. And that's kind of how I got started doing it. So, and I tell a lot of people, a lot of old radio friends or anyone who's been in radio that's trying to transition into voiceover, I always tell them, you've got a lot of bad habits from that, because I did, and a lot of the other guys and girls that I know had the same issues. Because you tend to kind of do the same read over and over in radio. You have like a concert spot and you do that thing, and then you have a car dealer thing and you do that thing. But sometimes, you kind of pigeon your hole into these reads that they don't really work outside of a radio station. No one will really want to pay for it. So you have to kind of get over that thing. So you have bad habits that, coming from radio, you need to learn how to fix or overcome.
Do you want to talk about that anymore? Obviously, there's maybe some specific things. You talked about having just long run-on sentences. Obviously, it doesn't give you a chance to breathe and take a deep breath.
The main issues that I saw in myself and other people are people shouting during their spots and screaming. And giving in putting certain effects on their voice that sound kind of strange, which sometimes kind of works in radio when you're on the air. Being on air on radio is totally a whole different ball game than doing voiceover. Some people put a little effect on themselves when they're doing their radio thing or whatever, and you get a lot of that kind of into the commercial spots, which doesn't really come across very well. Ends up sounding kind of more small market and more just doesn't give a good sound for what the spot's going for in the wider world of advertising. So those are the two main things. And well, that's the one main thing. The second thing is always hitting you and your, because in radio, they always wanted you to do that. So when I started doing voiceover, anytime a you or a your, and you need to get your butt down here now. And that's, people have been doing that kind of thing forever, and clients will still direct you and want you to hit you and your, which is fine, but I would hit it every single time because that's just what I did. And that's a kind of a tell too, that they're just kind of falling back on that radio thing, and that's what I'm supposed to do. So you have to get past that kind of stuff.
So how else have you seen the voiceover business change since you got started, you said at least 10 years ago?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's awesome talent that have been around for a long time that have seen much more than I've seen and overcome a lot of things. When I got in, it was the deadpan type of Gen X voice was kind of what was hot at the time. Then that transitioned over the years later into regular guy next door, whatever you want to call it, conversational. That's the big thing. And that's kind of where we are right now. Even though it's my opinion, then that has kind of started to morph a little bit back. You're seeing more people that want announcer type reads again in a lot of stuff. You've seen that. And I think especially in fast food went, almost everybody went super conversational. If you remember any McDonald's spots from 2, 3, 4 years ago, they were so low key. And they've kind of turned that back around into a little more announcery type stuff. So me personally, I'm seeing a little bit more of the announcer sound kind of creep back in different ways, although there's still a lot of need for that conversational read. And there's many different varieties of what that is. Conversational doesn't really cover, a client will tell you that, and that doesn't necessarily tell you what they really want. They might want really real with nothing on it, or they might want your version of conversational. It just depends on what's in their head. So, but that's still really big today. And if you can do that read, you can definitely make money.
Do you do both styles, the conversational and announcer?
Yeah. And, you know, I used to get booked almost exclusively on the conversational sound. And now it's different than it was. I'm saying maybe 05, 06. It's become even less affected than it is now. And it's actually gotten really harder to do for myself anyways. But it's still big. That was my main thing. Now I do a little bit. I still do a lot of conversational, friendly type stuff, but I do a lot more announcer promo type reads now too.
Well, that sounds great. I want to say hello to our viewer. It's always cool to see people actually tune online and watch us live. You guys, this is the VO podcast. My name is Dan Simpson, or rather, in real life, I just go by Dan Simpson. The VO podcast features live broadcast interviews with folks in the voiceover community, such as we have Jason Rooney today. This is our 4th episode. Again, thank you, Jason, for being here. So you talked about doing fast food. Well, first of all, do we consider Panda Express fast food?
I would think that's fast food. Yeah, sure.
How do they want you to do that read?
That read is, they want a real friendly read. They want it semi-conversational, but not really overboard. They want kind of conversational, but they really want friendly is their big thing. And they actually want a little bit more energy. The more energy you put into a read, kind of the less conversational it really gets, because you don't really talk like this all the time. So they like energetic, a little bit of conversational in there, and friendly. That's their main thing.
Cool. So obviously you have a home set up and you do your projects at home, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you find yourself in the studio working on those projects as well?
On what projects?
I don't know. I guess projects that do not require you to be remote talent. So you're clearly a remote talent. You do recording and voicing at home. Do they? Are you ever hired and paid to come into the studio and do that work?
Generally, no. When I moved here to St. Louis from Las Vegas, there's a couple of because things are run here kind of old school. It's kind of a weird thing, but I've actually gone, I think, 3 or 4 times and done studios outside of my own studio just to do it and have fun with it. If I have time, if I have travel time in between sessions, which a lot of times I don't. But if I do, it's kind of fun to get out now. But generally, no. I mean, all of my regular big clients, it's all ISDN or Source Connect.
Do you want to talk more about that? How many clients do use that technology and utilize that technology in your experience? Maybe a percentage or
ISDN and Source Connect together or separate?
I guess either technologies. I'm assuming some people just sort of let you go free and just say, okay, here's your script. Go ahead and record it. Yeah. It happens sometimes. So less than you would connect with them in a live setting and record like
I'd say
that.
Probably 90% of everything is ISDN. Probably 5% is Source Connect for me. I know that's different for other people. And maybe another 5% would be record on your own. But that doesn't happen. Record on your own. The only client I can really even think of now is I have a Honda client that I do regional Honda spots for. And he'll just send me stuff. But I've been doing it for years. Cut these, send me 2 takes, send them back. We're fine. I've done that for UFC too. UFC promos, sometimes they'll send them over. I'll cut them and send them back. It's becoming a little bit more likely than it has been in the past. Once you've got a relationship with somebody and they don't need to direct you for whatever reason, just cut it and send it if it works for them. And I'm fine doing that. But most of the time it's ISDN most of the time. And that's a whole nother thing with ISDN and Source Connect, and ISDN is dying, and which is true, but that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Would you suggest to voice actors to go ahead and invest in the ISDN line?
It depends on where you live and what you're doing. On the West Coast, generally, you're paying about $50 a month. You might pay a couple hundred for installation. But then in some newer housing developments, you can't even get ISDN because everything's fiber to their street. So that's an issue as well. I would say when people are starting out, no. You basically get ISDN when you have to get it. When you're doing enough sessions that it doesn't make sense for you to go down and rent a studio or pay a bridging fee, that's when it's time to do it. But, you know, ISDN is not going to be around forever. When it eventually dies, I don't know if that's going to be in 10 years or 20 years or next year. I really don't know. But it's going to make things a little bit easier because there'll be less of a cost. But the price for ISDN codecs has gone down tremendously just in the past 2 or 3 years. Stuff that used to cost $1,500, $2,000 used on eBay is now going for under $750. So you could snag stuff for a lot cheaper now. Now, and my ISDN service here, because I'm in the Midwest now, is like $550 a month. So that gets pretty expensive. So if ISDN totally died and I can switch to something else, I wouldn't shed a tear.
All right. Well, that's really interesting to hear. I'm going to have to investigate that more further. Jason, you obviously do a lot of really interesting voice acting. I'm looking at your Twitter profile. It says you do Wendy Williams, Proactiv, TruTV, Panda Express, and Disney. You also mentioned that you did Saturday Night Live. Do you mind talking to me about that? What was that for?
That was maybe about 3-4 weeks ago, about 4 weeks ago. My agent, Phil from ACM in New York, called me and said, this was on a Saturday, and said, hey, I've got this gig for Saturday Night Live that they want to use you for. Now, I grew up with Saturday Night Live. It's been my favorite show my whole entire life. When I was in radio, I interviewed Dana Carvey and John Lovitz, and these are the guys that I grew up watching and, you know, and idolized, really. I'm not a comedian or anything like that, but that was my show, and I still love it to this day. So this was really cool. You know, I was like, hey, I'll do whatever they want. So the people from the show called me, and we checked the line, and then they sent me down to their production studio and called me and then connected to me there. It was a spoof movie trailer for the movie Home 2, which doesn't exist. There's a Home 1 with Jim Parsons and some other people. It's an animated movie. So they had redone the trailer for Home 2 with a bunch of hip hop artists and stuff like that. And it's still online that you can see. So I voiced the spoof trailer for that aired on that show.
Okay. Yeah, obviously Don Pardo passed in late 2014. I was wondering if that had anything to do with that. You really piqued my interest.
I don't know that it necessarily had to do with that. I've seen a shift in the show. Before this year and maybe last season, there really was no voices that they used, period, that I'm aware of, other than cast members. Any kind of voiceover you heard was a cast member back, you know, going back forever, even in the 80s. Phil Hartman did a lot of the VO for that kind of stuff. But since Andy Samberg came, they started doing these little more digital shorts, and they started to do different things that were filmed and that weren't live. But they still used cast members for that. And I think just maybe this season, maybe last season, they've started using a few different voices. So I don't know if this is a new thing that they're going to do now and they're branching out with it, or they've done it a few times and they're not going to do it again. But I was happy to just be involved because that's basically the only way I'll ever be on that show. So I was happy to do it.
That sounds really cool. Maybe there's a little shift there going on at Saturday Night Live that could play out well for voice actors. You know, we'll never. I guess we'll see as that plays out. Jason, how do you go about finding new clients? I know a lot of folks just have work off of their name because they're very good at saying "in a world." Perhaps there are voice actors who also find their work. I've been talking to many who do that through sites such as voices.com, Voices 123, just to name a few. How do you go about finding new clients generally? How do you earn new clients?
You know, I really don't. I really don't look for new clients. I don't go out and look for them really, because I'm blessed to have some great agents and a lot of them all over the country. That's where all my leads come from. That's where all my auditions come from. I'm not on any online sites or anything like that. So 100% of everything all comes from my agents and finding stuff for me, getting auditions and auditioning and trying to get stuff there. Yeah, I mean, sometimes things happen. People contact you that you haven't worked with before, and somehow they found you and they want to audition you or hire you for something. And of course, I'll do that. But I don't really go out looking for clients per se. I mean, sometimes I'll go out looking for different agents or management or something like that, but not really clients. Luckily for me, there's a stream of stuff coming in that I go for. But people starting out, a lot of people go online, voices.com, Voice123, and those P2P sites, and that's how they get their stuff, which is great, especially when you're starting out, because you've got a whole list of stuff that you can go for.
When do you think is a right time for a voice actor to approach an agent and perhaps start looking for representation?
The time is going to look. An agent wants you to make money. Their job is to make money, and they want you if you will help them make money. This isn't a thing. I think you sound cool. I like you. Well, I mean, you have to like each other, I guess, but it's all about, this is a business and it's all about making money. If you don't have a track record of being hired and making money on your own, generally it's going to be really hard for an agent to pick you up because they're going to have to take a shot in the dark. Generally, they want to see who have you worked with? What have you done before? What are you doing now? How much money are you making? And then if your sound fits in with their roster and they like you, and then maybe they'll sign you. But that's really what it's all about. Right when you're starting out, a lot of people want to jump on the agent bandwagon right away. And some people have had success. Anything can happen. But generally speaking, you have to have a track record before most agents are going to be willing to pay attention to you, especially in Chicago, Los Angeles, New York.
Well, that is some really great advice. Jason, as you know, what I'll be doing is taking what you share and I turn them into hashtag VO tips, which I share online through Twitter. So I hope you don't mind if I just go ahead and steal everything that you say and write it out via Twitter. Is that all right? Thank you.
I haven't copyrighted anything.
I appreciate that. Let me know if there are extra performance fees that I need to pay for, but I appreciate that. I think you should have a cookie bouquet coming to you. You know.
Oh yeah, I love cookies. I'm a big fan of cookies.
That'll be nice. We'll work on getting a bigger budget for the show, and I promise all my guests will get baskets of cheeses and cookies and all types of delicious things. We'll work on that, you guys. So you talked a little bit about finding new clients, and generally you found a way to get new clients to come to you. You've suggested to new VO clients that a proven track record in some way will help you land an agent. Would you say that your experience in radio is what helped you land those agents when you first got started?
No, radio didn't help me that. Radio helped me get into voiceover because it gave me the practice of recording those spots in the radio station and kind of letting me work on that and figure out how to do reads that I thought sounded good. So it helped in that aspect, as you know, some people come from acting and get into voiceover and some people come from no background whatsoever. So radio helped me kind of understand a little bit and give me a little bit of a head start with it. But radio would be a detriment to get agents, actually, without getting over those crutches and those bad habits that I learned on there. So no.
Good point. I'm wondering, Jason, if you have had the opportunity to work with voice coaches, or perhaps professional demo producers. I've heard your demos, and I got to say they sound incredible. I suggest anyone who's looking for a male voice, go ahead and check out Jason. It's just his demos are just outstanding. I'm wondering who made those, and if you had some coaching along the way.
Coaching, I've done Nancy Wolfson, who's in Los Angeles. She's a really great coach. She's good with people who are in the business and have done it for a while, and she's really good with people that are starting out too. And a lot of coaches aren't good with both type of people. A lot of coaches will want to work kind of go towards they just work with new people and bring them up, or they work with veterans and try to take them to the next level. But she's really good with both, and her plan and how she attacks it is really, really good. I would definitely recommend, especially if you're starting out. She's great because she'll throw you right in and get you moving fast. I've worked with her. I've worked with Joyce Castellano. She's in Los Angeles on some promo stuff. Super, super great lady. I haven't worked with personally, but Chuck Duran is really good at demo production. He's in Los Angeles. He's really, really good. I've heard demos that he's done. He's awesome. Those are really, Nancy and Joyce, the only people I've really gone to. There's Maurice Tobias, who's really, really good too. And hopefully at some point I'll work with her on some stuff. But those are the main people that I've worked with and are on my radar of people I'd like to work with. But there's a lot of good people out there, but there's a lot of bad people too. If you're starting out, you have to kind of pay attention to where you're getting your coaching from. Find out who the person is. Who are they? What are they about? What's their background? Are they a VO artist? They're a voice actor, and now they're helping people out. Well, find out about them. What are they doing? And if you like what you see, you think they're good and they've got a good track record, then check it out. If not, then don't. But there's a lot of people out there that, you can find classes anywhere. You can find people that'll help you out almost anywhere online. You have to be careful though. Some people I don't think are really necessarily qualified to be teaching people, but that's just my opinion. Just be careful.
Really cool. Well, that's why I've reached out, and I'm trying to get everyone in the voiceover community to teach me, and I'm hoping this is going to work out. So thanks again for being here, Jason. I truly appreciate you, and I appreciate your time. Hopefully we're not taking too much of your time.
No. And you know what? I forgot to mention demos. My commercial demo is done by Adrenaline Studios in Las Vegas. My good friend Matt Smith. They're really good at putting stuff together. They're really affordable. Ear blowing audio. Eric runs that. You can find him. He's on Twitter. I don't know your Twitter handle. He did my radio imaging demos, and he's really good at that too. So I would go to those guys. Chuck Duran for promo demos and trailer stuff. I haven't heard anybody that has had better demos that I've heard, but there's a few other people that do really good stuff too. So he's not the only game in town, but he's good.
Shout out to Chuck Duran with the VO Buzz Weekly. They do great work over there. These are folks that I get to look up to. Let's talk more about some of your specialties. And I know we talked about you doing conversational reads. You talked about doing announcer style reads. Do you have any other specialties that you would say were maybe your best voices?
I just do shades of myself, basically. Different shades of me. Conversational me, announcery me, sportsy me, intense me. That's basically what I do. I have a friend of mine who does so many different character voices and stuff. He's really amazing at it. And he can't understand because he does so much stuff and it's awesome. Well, why don't I do voices? I just can't do them. It's just not my thing. I'm not good at it. I wouldn't make any money doing it. So I'm going to do what helps me pay my bills, and I just do the different shades of me. But you only do you. Well, yeah, but there's different parts of me. So that's kind of what I do. And some people are just all about the character voices or accents and all that kind of stuff, and those people are gifted with that, and a lot of those people do really, really well, but that's just not my thing. It's just all me, different shades of me. And that's really the key, I think, to having success and kind of finding your little genre and where you fit in the voiceover world, is figuring out what you can do good, but it's got to be you. If I'm trying to be Joe Cipriano or I'm trying to be Don LaFontaine, it's not going to come across because those guys that's them. They do their thing and they're good at it. Bo Weaver's another guy. He does his thing. He's good at it. If I try to do them, it's going to just be a second rate them, and they're going to get the work every time. So you always have to put your own spin, your own thought process into each script and just try to get away, because that's the easiest thing to do, because I did it too. Let me start out in voiceover. Okay, who do I like? Let me find people. Well, let me just try to do that. Let me just kind of imitate their style and see where I can get with that. And I mean, not to say you couldn't get hired doing stuff like that, but I don't think you'll have real true success unless you find your kind of own thing. Because once you find that, I can't do Joe Cipriano or Don LaFontaine. They can, but they can't do me. So once you find your thing, that's when you're on the right track.
Well, from where I'm sitting, Jason, I think you got a good voice. The me voice that you got is really good. It sounds really quite good, especially on that microphone. Do you mind telling us what you're talking into today?
I use a Sennheiser 416 for 99.9% of everything I do. I have a Neumann U87, but I very rarely use it. When I bought it, I wanted to have a second mic, and I wanted to have it for, okay, maybe for conversational type reads, I'll use that when I don't need to really be pushing it with the signal into the 416. But I found myself just not using it because this 416 mic is really, I think it just complements my voice and helps my performance. So that's really what I use, unless somebody recommends another mic or, hey, can you switch another mic? But that's never happened. So, but I have it. I hang my coat on it.
Oh my gosh, please don't hang your coat on it.
My light is on the mic stand now for my 416 is sitting right in front of me.
Oh gosh, you're the second voice actor out of 4 who have told me they have a U87 and you don't use it. These, I know I'm laughing, but these are tears of sadness over here.
It's a great mic. It's a really, really good mic, but on the 416, everything comes out the way I want it. So there's no reason to go back and forth. The U87 is great because it's super flat. So I can, if I wanted to EQ it into almost anything, I could. Now, if I was doing ADR or anything for movies or shows or anything like that, then I would probably switch over to the U87 because it's going to sound a little bit more natural. It won't have any bumps in the signal. So definitely for ADR, I would definitely use it because it lends itself to that. But it's really good too. I mean, the 416 I don't think is all that great for most female voices. So a lot of women use either a U87 or they'll use a TLM 103 or something of that sort because it's a little better sound, I think. But some women do use a 416 too, and it turns out okay. But just depends on the voice.
So it seems like you're advocating at least a little bit of experimentation because you can't figure out what works unless you try.
No mic is perfect for everyone. You know, I mean, you really do have to experiment. There's a lot of places you can go in, especially in Los Angeles. You can go in and try out mics, or some places you can do a thing where they'll send it to you. You can use it and check it out. A lot of the 2 mics I have, pretty much everybody has them. When I started getting into voiceover and started building my studio, I started researching mics, and I used some cheaper mics, and I didn't really like as much. And once I started using these, I just loved them, and that's why I went with them.
Really cool. So you have the Sennheiser 416. You use the Neumann U87 from time to time, rarely. That's really cool. I appreciate those tips. I'm going to go ahead and list those on our website for the people to check out. So you talked a little bit more about using microphones and knowing what their strengths are, and obviously that comes from experimentation and just knowing at least a little bit about what the mic does. And did you what led you to buying the 416? Is it just because it's a well-known mic, or you've heard many examples where you're like, yep, that's a good mic, or someone told you?
Before I knew anything about microphones, I only knew the microphones that I used when I went to the studio. If I liked a spot, I liked how I sounded, I'd look, what is that? And I would use, in the beginning, I would use either a U87 or there was an AKG mic in there too that I used, which I really didn't like. And the first time I used a 416, I did a spot. I'm like, oh man, this mic is awesome. I just really like it. I like how I sound. And so I remember I wrote it down because I'm like, I'm going to get one of those someday. When I have my own thing, I'm going to buy one of those because I used it. And then I started using it basically for almost everything. They would always put me on the 416 mic. So, and I would still use a U87 sometimes, but I just really liked the 416 and how it sounded. And then after that, when I started doing more research, I found out, well, everybody's using a 416 pretty much. Most guys, especially if they're doing any promo or trailer type of stuff, they're all using that 416 mic. And I thought, well, this just reinforces that this is a really great mic. So, and then I went for it. And now they're less money than they have ever been. I think they're $999, their list price. So they used to be $1,500, and you can find them cheaper than that used. You can probably find for under $1,000 for sure.
Obviously, we got to invest in our craft if our craft is going to invest in us a little bit here. Jason, I'm wondering if you practice, what you do to stay on top of your game. Do you have any specific exercises that you do, maybe just to even warm up before you go ahead and do your voicings when you do your reads? Anything that you do to stay on top of your game and remain the professional that you are?
Here's what I do. I don't want to blow out your mic when I do this, just FYI. A-E-I-O-U, A-E-I-O-U, blah, 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 blah. That's what I do. To loosen myself up, to start enunciating. You know, everyone gets mush mouth and you get in there and you start reading and it's just real slurry and whatever. That's what I do. Somebody said, do this, ooh, ix, to get your mouth kind of moving. I'm tongue-tied, severely tongue-tied. So sometimes my muscles in my mouth have to overcome that. So sometimes they get mushy and I have to do these exercises to get everything back on track. That's pretty much what I do. Other people do fa la 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 or whatever thing they want to do. I think it's all about just kind of getting the muscles in your mouth relaxed and getting everything warmed up and ready to go, especially when you're starting out first thing in the morning or whatever. That's really what you need to do. As far as staying on top of my game, I mean, I started going to Nancy Wolfson after I went to her maybe 3 years ago. So I'd been well versed in voiceover stuff up till then, but I just wanted to bring it. Let me see if I can bring it to the next level, get some coaching and just give me a different aspect on things. And I think that's important for people of wherever you are. If you're starting out or, you have to keep growing and staying on top of it. There's a great workout group in Las Vegas that my friend Melissa Moats runs. And they get together and do voiceover workouts and they bring scripts and read them and everybody listens and then gives feedback and people work on different things. And there's another group in LA that I used to go to all the time too. And it was the same sort of thing. You just work on things and there's lots of other actors there and people that have done just incredible work and that I really admire. And these people are giving me, try it this way. Just really great stuff. So if you're starting out, if you're in LA, you can find them. Obviously, in Vegas, New York, a lot of major cities probably have little voiceover groups that you can get with. I would definitely recommend that because that's a great way to learn. It's a great way to kind of work on it no matter what you're doing. You always have to keep moving forward. If you stop, it's risky.
Is there anything else that you do to stay competitive with folks who are at a similar level of experience as you?
I just watch TV, see what's on, see what things, who's getting hired, what reads you're seeing more of, and just pay attention to that kind of stuff. Most of us all watch TV or watch cable. We all have Netflix and stuff too, but watch those spots and see, even if you're on YouTube, there's paid placement stuff on there all the time. Well, listen to that read and what the client is, and over a while, you'll start seeing trends and what you're seeing more of than what you're seeing less of. If you just pay attention, that's how you can stay on top of things. You can say, well, I saw in this one commercial break, 3 of the 4 spots were kind of a conversational read and one wasn't. And that was probably the local spot and it was a car dealer and he was screaming. So pay attention to what you see because these people are getting hired for these jobs. And that's what's selling today, right now. Pay attention to that and try to follow those. I mean, voiceover is trends. It's going to go to conversational. It was announcer. It was this and that. I mean, and the trends are always kind of moving in different ways. If you stay on top of that and then maybe adjust yourself. Okay, I need to work on more conversational stuff now because that's not what I've done before. Or I was a conversational guy and now things are moving back announcer. Let me kind of work on that. If you stay versatile like that, that's what I do. Just me, but different styles. Then I think you'll have success.
Jason, any predictions for what kind of styles we might expect in the future from the VO world?
Gosh, I hope it's something I can do. I hope it's not that voice or whatever that I get to. Like I said before, I think you're seeing a little bit more announcer styles kind of come back into the mix. Anytime the market gets saturated with one style of read, then somebody else is going to go against that and do something different to stand out. So wherever you're at, if you're at conversational over here, then there's going to be some announcer stuff over here because somebody's going to want to combat all of the conversational. So I think, the announcer style has come back in a way. I'm trying to think of any real specific type trends that I've noticed recently. Not really per se. I mean, there's still a ton of conversational stuff out there, but where it goes next, who knows? I would have never predicted the conversational thing anyway. I would have never thought that would have become a thing. So what do I know? I just try to follow the trends and capitalize as much as I can. If I find out, though, I'll let you know.
I appreciate that, and I will share it as a VO tip. Jason, let me think here. It's been cool to have you. I know I've said it a few times, and I just want to reiterate that. I just want to ask you a little bit about perhaps how you build relationships with clients. You mentioned before that you earn a lot of clients through your agents, and you're reaching a level where you don't actually have to actively pursue clients. They're sort of finding you, and I think also part of that is getting return business, and hopefully that becomes.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting back here and all these clients are just coming to me and yeah, please work for us. That's not it at all. What I mean by that is the way I'm getting clients or finding new client. I'm not finding the client. The auditions are coming in, and I'm doing these auditions, trying to win these jobs and hopefully have a relationship and do more stuff for these clients. So I'm still working to try to get these clients. I'm just not going out, me to them, finding them and trying to convince them to let me audition or send me a tape or whatever. It's all about doing the audition and trying to win the job. That's what it's all about for me.
Understood. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm sorry to have misspoken.
No. I think I'm over here. Everybody wants to use me. That's not the case at all. I'm scrambling, trying to find work. Just like everybody else. And but that's how it's done for me. Luckily, I get lots of auditions from all my agents, so I can just focus on those performances and try to book things as much as possible.
When you do auditions, what normally happens? Do you meet with the clients on your ISDN line, or do they send you a list of instructions?
No, generally, an agent will send an audition over, and they'll need it back with 24, 48 hours. 98% of the time, record it on your own, send it back. There'll be instructions, what they're looking for. Maybe they want 2 takes, or they want 1 take, or whatever they want, and then you send one in and you send it back. Sometimes there's live auditions where the client will be on the doing ISDN. Originally, like for Wendy Williams, I did an audition for them. Basically, it's a callback. Now they want to do a live audition with you. They want to direct you and see how it goes. And then I went from there and then booked it after that. But so sometimes that happens. But usually, I mean, every now and then you'll have a client. They might already heard your demo and they want to be on the line and do an audition, but they're pretty interested in you by that point. So you're pretty close. Maybe they're thinking of a few different people, but generally you're just recording it at home or however you're doing it, shipping it off, and crossing your fingers.
Yeah, that crossing the fingers part, that's the hardest part for me, I think. Well, that sounds really interesting. So you're telling me that a lot of your auditions do happen sort of on your own basis, and then once you land those gigs, your jobs primarily are in the studio on an ISDN line, and by in the studio, in your home studio,
yeah,
on your ISDN line. Do you mind talking a little bit more about your home studio? What do you got going on there? I see some sound panels. You're not in a whisper room. You're obviously in a treated room with sound panels. You have a little buffer on the mic. I'm not a little mic foam on there. You're not using.
Is that in? Oh, that's on camera. That's not supposed to be on camera.
I like it.
Oh my gosh, this is like an Easter egg. No, that's not supposed to be seen. That's not the. I'm losing the magic of it. You're not supposed to see that. You can still see it. Who cares?
A little bit.
Actually, I converted a bedroom in my basement to a studio. So I have, sound panels like behind me, but I do have a sound booth too, which is Studio Bricks, which is a company from Spain. I twist my camera out to show you, but everything would fall apart. But if you go online, search Studio Bricks, you'll find it. They're really cool booths. They're kind of modular. Not this. A lot of VO booths are carpeted, and I didn't really like that look as much. So I went with the Studio Bricks. It's a real clean facade, and I really like how it looks. Eventually, I might just actually do a build out and build a sound booth. But so I have that. All my stuff's done in there. I've got a monitor for scripts, and then I've got an ISDN, 2 ISDN boxes, one for backup, and Avalon M5 is my preamp, and my mixer, and that's pretty much it with my computer and everything. You don't need a lot these days. Some people have a bunch of equipment, but you don't have to have that. A nice preamp helps, sweetens the sound a little bit, and plug a good mic into that, and you're pretty much good to go. With as long as there's no sound issues in your house or in your booth or anything.
Are you in like a quiet neighborhood?
Yeah, it's pretty quiet around here for the most part. But my booth blocks, outside of my studio here, there's a TV room and the kids will watch TV. I don't even have to close the door. Somebody can watch TV or talk or whatever. I go in the booth and close it. It's nothing seeps in. So I don't know. Luckily, I don't have to worry about that.
Well, I just learned about studio bricks. These look pretty cool. I hope you got the orange one. That one looks the most fun.
I think I originally ordered a gray or some color like that, but with the shipping and stuff, and when I had to have it, I wasn't going to get it in time for my new house. So he said, "Hey, I got a white one. It's ready to ship." I said, "I'll take it."
Cool. So it looks
White's
like
cool too, though. White's cool.
Yeah, white's cool. You can paint it. You could paint it any color. You could paint it gray if you wanted.
I could. I'm not going to do that though.
Yeah, it might ruin the resale value. So it looks like you can build them any size you want.
I'm just lazy. I don't want to do
it. Of course. It looks like you can build them about any size you want and just put it together.
Yeah, you can get really big ones. You can get a whole ventilation system in them, which is really nice. Yeah, and you can get the little small ones. Those are the cheapest, and then you can they'll build you pretty much whatever you want, but the bigger it is, the more expensive it is, obviously. But they're in line with all the other VO booths that you can buy, pretty much. It's all, it's all in the same range. So they're not crazy more expensive than any other booth that you would buy. So, and the sound isolation is as good as you would expect.
Would you mind sharing maybe in the price range of what you spend or what someone could expect?
This one, because now they got to ship this thing from Spain too, so that's an expense. I mean, I think it ended up being about $9,000 altogether. But if you go a model that was a little bit smaller, they maybe start at 5,000 or or so. So I mean, granted, they're not cheap. This is this is a lot of money. But if you're looking for a VO booth, it's in that scale. A lot of people, I mean, especially when they're starting out, they're in their walk-in closet working, which works for most things. So I think Townsend Coleman still records in his closet. I don't even think he has a VO booth. There's a guy that did NBC for years and years and years. So it's just really all about the sound. That's really what it's about. And if your closet's good, then go for it.
Did you know that you would have had a good sounding voice, or you just pretty much assumed and you've heard from everyone that this is this kind of booth is high quality?
There was a couple of videos online on these booths, and a couple of talent who I wasn't really familiar with, but they did little videos and kind of explained the booth and their process and why they liked it. And so I said, I think it's going to be okay. The way it's constructed, there's no screws or anything. It's all kind of slides together, which is nice because you've got no holes unless you put them in there for sound to really get in. So, it works pretty well.
Cool. So it looks like the cables and whatnot have a little place to snake through the side, and you probably got your computer set up outside there. And cool. So that looks like a really great little setup. Hopefully it doesn't get too hot in there, huh?
If you're looking for booths, you can go online and find pictures a lot of times of what different guys do. If you join a couple of the Facebook groups of voiceover people, you can research people, and a lot of times they'll have pictures. And I mean, I enjoyed that before. I really built in my old house, I had a booth that we actually built in. We built our own booth in the room, which actually turned out to be cheaper than buying a whole separate unit and having it installed. But a lot of people do a lot of different things, and I enjoyed kind of looking through and seeing videos and pictures of what other people did and kind of getting ideas. Oh, that's kind of cool. I could do X, Y, or Z or whatever. So there's videos out there and there's things that you can check out if you're looking for that, just to see what other people are doing and maybe give you ideas or inspire you to when it's your time to do a full studio build.
Cool. So lots of good tips about really some advanced things. Obviously, someone like me who's getting into the voiceover world, I'm probably going to go ahead and and go into the closet, as it were, and
Yeah.
probably do something like that.
And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, and half the time they don't know if you're in a booth or if you're in a closet or what you're doing. So it really only matters what the client thinks of it and how it sounds. If they say, "Hey, are you in a closet or something?" and it sounds weird, which they won't say anyways, but if it sounds weird, it sounds weird no matter what you're in. So it's really the sound that really matters. It's kind of cool to have a booth, and it looks cool for me because I got to sit in here every day, but the sound is what matters.
Jason, I'm wondering here, if you could think of a younger Jason Rooney, what might you tell him to maybe enable Jason Rooney, the younger Jason Rooney, to maybe find more success, maybe even the kinds of success? Obviously, there's plenty of voiceover work out there, and there's plenty of work for everybody. But obviously, we're looking towards trying to land the really excellent national spots, the big spots, the spots that obviously help us pay our bills. I'm wondering, what would you have told a younger you to perhaps reach a higher level of success more quickly?
You know, I don't think I would have told myself anything really. The path, I mean, that I went through to get to the current level, I mean, I kind of had to go through all that stuff. I never really, I mean, I could have tried to motivate myself earlier to try to do different things and get out there more, but I don't know that I would have even necessarily done that. You know, I mean, I started out and didn't have a lot of knowledge, and I kind of built on that as I got more clients and did more things and explored different types of reads that I could do. So I don't think I really would change anything, or I would even give myself, I mean, unless I could come, you know, Back to the Future style and say, "Hey, this is the path, just stick with it." That would pretty much be it, because it's going to really pay off for you. I mean, I'm blessed by God to be able to do this. I mean, it's fun to do. I get to stay home and I don't forget that. You know what I mean? I'm not some special guy that somehow has something that no one else has. It's not really what it is. I just work at it and try to be the best I can be, and hopefully clients will hire me. And that's all of us. We're all in the same boat. We just got to, that's what we got to do.
Jason, we're going to wrap this up here in just a few minutes, but I have maybe a question or two more for you. I'm wondering what types of folks you look up to. From where I'm sitting, I'm looking up to folks like you. I'm looking up to folks like my other Jason Watt I had on the show, Ken Therio. I'm looking up to you guys. You guys have experience in the business. You know how to land gigs. You know how to get great spots and deliver excellent voicings. So I'm wondering, what was the question that I was wondering? I was wondering
who I look up to?
Something. Yeah, what types of folks do you look up to, and do you try to learn from, either directly or indirectly?
You know, there's a lot of people I look up to. The people I look up to are you know, guys like Joe Cipriano. When I started out, I used to watch videos that he would put online, and I always looked up to him because he had kind of a similar voice and style to what I kind of thought where I was. And I thought, if this guy can do it, I might be able to do it. I might be able to get somewhere. You know, guys like that. Obviously, Don LaFontaine, who was just, you know, the master of all things voiceover. I never got to meet him, unfortunately, but I go to his fundraiser that SAG throws every year in LA. That's a guy. I mean, there's lots of videos and stuff you can find on him. Dave Fenoy's a great guy, and someone that I've known for a couple of years, and he's a guy I look up to. And a lot of these guys that have done it for a long time have kind of been through the rigmarole of the business, and those are the guys I look up to. Townsend Coleman, I look up to him. Similar type of guy. You know, I think we have maybe kind of a similar sound. I'm trying to think who else. There's a lot of people, though. I mean, I can find people that I've never even heard of, and I hear their demo and I go, "Oh man, this is awesome." And then I'll listen to more of their stuff, and there might be videos or promos or trailers they did, and I just watch it because I geek out on it. I'm like, "Oh, this sounds really good. Let me see what they're up to." Go to different casting sites and click on demos. You know what I mean? You'll find people, even if you don't know people's names. A lot of times you'll find people that you know the voice, but you don't know the name. So I would suggest just look around, see what you like, listen to it, and you know, get inspired.
Cool. This is a really cool opportunity for me and any viewers out there to actually get to know those folks behind the microphone, including Jason Rooney, who we have here. Jason, I think this is a great time to wrap it up. I think I've spent about an hour of your time.
My ISDN box is beeping, so they're hollering at me to get into the booth.
Well, there you go. Perfect timing. Thank you so much, Jason, for your time. I'm going to go ahead and let our viewers go, and then we'll say goodbye. Thanks so much, Jason.
Thank you. Right. Good luck.
Thank you. Bye now.